Welcome, wonderful listeners, to our fourth episode of the Young and Successful podcast, where we decode the secrets to success and discuss all the ways you can make your millions. We hope you enjoyed last week's episode with Zane. I always enjoy my conversations with him. When he does speak, you know it comes from a place of thought and good intent. This week we have someone who is very successful, a true serial entrepreneur with business ventures in multiple industries all throughout the globe. He is truly an inspiration, and I look forward to our chat today. I'm your host, Carl Grin, and I am thrilled to have you join us as we delve into the money-making magic. So, Zach, welcome on the podcast.
Thanks, Carl. Great to be here.
So how you been? We met about a week ago now at a poker game, actually. It was kind of wild. Just ran into you there. We got chatting a little bit about sports, and that's kind of how we met. And then we talked about mutual people we know, and the next thing you know, you're like, yeah, you actually sound like you're doing a cool podcast to help people out. You're welcome to come on. So I've done my research on you. I've known a little bit about you. But the average listener here, the people coming on, wouldn't know who Zach Friedman is. So you want to tell me a little bit about who you are and where you're from and where you're at kind of thing?
Definitely. Was born in Montreal, grew up there.
That's the Montreal phone number. Okay, correct. That makes sense now, yeah.
Came to Toronto originally to go to business school at Western University, Ontario, I should say, for Ivy Business School. I really liked the case study method. I knew pretty early, like it actually started my first business before coming to university.
Okay, what was it?
It was basically like a consumer social app for like the nightlife industry.
Oh.
So I had the like idea to basically aggregate all of like the venues, be able to see like curated lists, pay for bottle service, integrate technology.
So you were right into this tech kind of space even before coming to school. It's not like you came to the city, which introduced you to tech like a lot of kids do, right? You come to the city, you come to business school, you're
Correct.
like, wow, I can start a business. You knew this before coming to business school.
Yeah, and it actually, I white labeled the mobile application from the industry leader, which again, I think I was 16 at the time when I first came up with the idea. And
16 about bars. That's okay. That's interesting. Really young. Cool.
Yeah. I mean, the nightlife industry starts young, but I had the idea. I saw that there was a lot of difficulty in the industry, and I was really watching like some of the competitors in the space start to gain traction. When I reached out to the guys, they were San Francisco based. They had launched in a few states. Canada wasn't really on their radar. So I basically, they treat it like another state naturally.
Yeah.
But for me, it was a big market as a young entrepreneur. So no overhead, no employees, no staff. I basically white labeled the app, got a full stack tech.
And they were able, and so a lot of people that generally are 16, A, don't have the confidence, and B, feel like they're never going to get the respect from these people. Do you just like cold email them and be like, hey, I like what you're doing. I want to do this.
They thought they were taking me for a ride in terms of like, oh, this guy's going to give us free money. He must not be able to take it this far. But in my contract, I was really proactive. I negotiated rights for like first mover advantage to Europe. If I hit some certain milestones, I had the ability to like integrate changes into the tech. And if I like implemented unique product features, I had some like proprietary IP ownership over that. If I paid for the dev hours, I took the MVP and I actually managed to sign up like the majority of venues in Montreal, enough that when they like came back and they heard about the traction and they turned around, they were really like amazed by it. We ended up having
yeah, because I'm like, usually like when you're 16 trying to start businesses, and the biggest barrier for most people is A, they're scared, and B, they just don't feel like anybody will respect them, or they don't actually know how to have the conversation. So you just
love the challenge.
All in, Okay, that's cool. So we can continue our story. That was a little sidetrack. That's really cool. It's 16 starting.
So I'd already kind of gotten into the entrepreneurship ecosystem through CJEP, which is kind of the continuation of high school as well. I also had a marketing consulting business. So we were one of the first, not one of the first, but this was very early days of social media coming to fruition.
Yeah, this would have been like 2012, right?
Yeah,
around then.
Just about perfect. So started this company called Social Sphere, me and my partner, and we basically this was when Facebook had just came out, and older generations didn't really know how to interact with social media. We
were on social media, but our parents weren't yet.
Correct. So I'd basically go to these large multinational businesses and corporations, and the pitch was quite simple. It's like, you're a large retailer, manufacturer, you spend $30,000 on a billboard, you get how many impressions from that billboard, physical media or out-of-home media? Well, on social media, I bet you I could generate just as many impressions, pay me 1/5 of the price. I'm like, give me $6K a month, $5K a month. I'll create a landing page, web page, social media.
If you do it based on the numbers, that's a pretty easy sales pitch, right?
Yeah, I broke it down to the basics. In some cases, I was like, give me a trial. Let me show you what I can do for the first few.
Yeah.
But basically, same thing. I was about 17 years old at the time. This was kind of in conjunction with the nightlife app, but then we exited that opportunity and then came into the social media marketing play. And we scaled that up to about 12, 13 full-time clients. This was all before I went to university.
Yeah, so like in CJEP, right? Or high school CJEP.
CJEP. My partners were a little older than me, but the experience was fantastic. Like, really taught me how to run a business, operate. We had a couple employees. We got to outsource a lot of, like, from the core of social media management, we started to do content management. We did some more event production. At scale, one of our clients ended up basically having like us put on a full service event for them. We had like 35 staff.
Like a full party kind of thing?
Yeah, so we hosted Kylie Jenner's birthday party.
In Montreal?
Which was pretty cool, yeah.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it was her 18th birthday party. It was her first club appearance.
Yeah, I think I remember reading about that in the news or whatever. I'm never a big news guy, but my friends were at the time in high school, and you see somebody big like Kylie Jenner's in Canada partying. It's like, oh, cool, yeah.
Yeah, it was, honestly, it was my idea. We like saw we were like looking at the celebrities that the talent agent was able to acquire. I was just Googling her, and I kind of like saw you have like the Google panel, and it said like her birthday, and it was near mine. In like, I think it was August something was the date. And I was like, and it says like 17. I was like, oh, like she's turning 18, like in Montreal, that's a legal drinking age.
Yeah.
And basically I was like, this would be an incredible opportunity to bring a tier 1 celebrity to Montreal. And I was just supposed to manage the social media. But as the concept kind of evolved, I got my foot in the door and I kind of pitched the company that was just the financiers behind it. They were like a production, like promotion company.
Yeah.
They didn't have like a full service event entertainment ecosystem. I was like, well, if we're going to do this, let's also do, this media. Let's do this meet and greet. Let's do this stunt and event. We want to build the brand up so that it's, not like Kylie Jenner at Beach Club, like sponsored by Team Productions, which was the name of the company. But I want to be like Team Productions presents Kylie Jenner.
Yeah, that's kind of fun.
Flip the angle. So it was, anyway, sidetrack. But like I was already involved in business from a young age. Yeah.
So initially I was going to say you seem like a math guy from what I've looked online on your current jobs. But then you're saying you run the social media and stuff and the marketing. Typically, like
I wear a lot of hats,
So it's kind of fun, because I feel like a lot of young entrepreneurs and people out there don't realize they're like, okay, I'm good at one thing. I'm like, no. Generally, when you're starting a business, you need to be good at a few things, or you need to be at least willing to try a few things. Right? We need to wear a lot of hats. I myself, when I grew up, I had running a few businesses myself, smaller business than you, but then school underprepared me more than I thought. And what business school is going to be. Like, I thought business school is going to be like, you're going to learn about running a business, starting a business. Did you find the same thing when you went to Western and Ivy? You're like, wow, I'm going to learn so much about business. And you got there, you're like, I know 90% of this stuff.
I was going to get into that. I'm a dropout of university.
Not surprised. Not surprised.
How that occurred.
I almost dropped out too. Yeah, I know the feeling.
So I discovered at a young age I had a knack and talent for business and entrepreneurship. I was able to see problems and, be able to create creative solutions, and saw that there was a, connection between monetary success and doing that. And I kind of like, I have been, my mom has brought up to me before that in the past I was like, I would tell her like, Mom, I know I'm going to be successful. It doesn't matter when. Like I started to understand the system, and I had a lot of like resilience to try it. I was like from a young age selling lemonade at like 7 years old, where I figured out my first supply and demand really like
little basic
economics was if I put my lemonade stand on the top of a hill, because I was in Montreal, Westmount is where I lived, is on a mountain. I would be able to charge more money, or on a warm day I could charge more money for lemonade, or one day I gave out free brownies. And then I priced the lemonade 2 times higher, and everyone was thirsty because the brownies were really chocolatey. And I don't know.
Did you ever, when you were learning about money, I remember my first little business, somebody gave me $5 for a $2 chocolate bar. I just didn't give change. I was like 3 years old. I'm like, nope, you give me money. Like, I thought I'd pay specific money. Did you ever do that? Like, I don't know. I love that little story. My dad always tells it. When I was a kid, I was selling chocolate bars. I just made so much money the first day. He's like, how'd you do that? I'm like, I don't know. I just didn't give people change.
Yeah.
Right? Because you don't know as a kid. Like, people give you money, you just say thanks, and you just keep going. Like, but that was like, I was running little candy bar things. I did it outside an LCBO because I'm like, this is so great. Everybody's in there. Everybody sees a little guy, and they're just selling candy bars, like that kind of thing. You start like 3 and 4, and
play to your strengths, buddy. It is. It's great.
Then I learned that was wrong, and so you had to keep going. And then you got to give change, and then you can price more. And then I'm like, okay, well, I'm just going to up the price of chocolate bars then. And that's what I did. Then I didn't sell any because I'm like, now the chocolate bars are $5. That's kind of thing. And so you learn that supply and demand.
There's been very, many like resounding times in my life where pricing came into play, where just, you know, I was having conversation with partners, whatever, about how to price or book something.
Yeah.
And I just like went for like top of the range, and it was accepted. I feel like if you have a good product, and
you got like, people sell themselves short a lot.
If worst case, they say no. Right?
Yeah. It's like that, like most people can't stand rejections. They're like, oh, I'll make like a 1% profit margin, or I'll like break even. It's like, why don't you just ask for what you want, what you think you can get, and then they come back, then you can negotiate.
I had a funny one, which was one of my first $1 million advisory service contracts.
Yeah.
Probably my first 7-figure like big contract. I'll get into the story a bit more later, but I went from kind of marketing consulting, university, dropped out to work on another consumer social app, then got into digital assets.
Yeah.
Which was really like, I'll talk about that in a little bit, because as a, you know, really, that's where my career has been focused for the last 7 years.
Well, that was, I briefly wanted to touch base on, we were talking about that briefly, but the idea of what drove you to build wealth and success, and why did you want to become successful or monetarily successful, or how did you do that at a young age? Was that your parent, like, was that your mom? Was that your dad? Was that just you watching TV and wanted to be that? Like, how did you come across actually this desire?
So it's interesting. My grandfather is an immigrant who grew up in Poland during World War II, Jewish family.
Yeah.
And his story of coming to Canada with nothing, like the success he was able to achieve, really starting, he had multiple stops and starts in his company and his history. You know, lots of major adversity. He I feel like the entrepreneurship was in my DNA because of that. And it was just ingrained in me from a young age. Like, hearing the stories of how he built and overcame what he did were really like, just resonated with me at a deeper level. Very intelligent parents that helped, you know, guide and shape me. But the inspiration, I think, comes way more from my grandfather, and that, like, you know, the things he did as an entrepreneur at 13 were to survive. Like,
you needed to put food on the table. You needed to eat. You needed to sleep.
He was
somewhere.
not going to survive the winter. He was selling silks on the black market, buying them from Tajikistan. He was sent to like a work camp in Siberia, and Russia. 13 years old, he figured out that silks from Tajikistan were cheaper than in Russia. So he'd buy them from the train conductor, like a kilometer up the track, wrap them around his body. He was stick thin, 70 pounds, like as a teenager. Put his father's overcoat on with the silk, sell them on the black market to survive. And
literally the old school entrepreneurship, buy something, sell something, you got to work your ass off for it, like in the cold and this and that, like just all
work your ass off. It's actually was illegal to speculate in Russia.
Oh yeah.
Because it's communism. So selling things for a profit is legal. You go to jail for life. So,
it's just the risk is so much higher. Like, people think, you know, in Canada it's so safe to try to start and fail. Like, back then, no, you're done. You make one mistake there and he's out.
It was life or death. And I think that story, I'd made a connection. So he ended up getting into the clothing business. Ironically, it's kind of his start, but that's what he got comfortable with. Like, you know, came to Canada and ended up getting into menswear manufacturing, suits, etc. Started like a large chain with stores across the country. So I would actually, when this like Facebook started to grow on social media, I took his wholesale pricing on clothing, started a Facebook page, and I started to sell like cool brand to my friends online.
Cool. Okay.
That was actually like my first like
little
internet business, I should say. And I'd made the parallel organically. I wasn't thoughtful about it, but I was like, my grandfather used to sell clothes at around this age to survive. And I'm able to, because of what he did, you know, I have stability, a foundation, and I'm blessed with the ability to sell it for profit. So
not for food, for actually to put some money in my pocket.
And I saw it as, not that it was an obligation, but like I just was blessed to have the opportunity.
It's your lineage. It's almost a respect to do it, to respect him, right? To actually like honor him and respect him. You could do that. It's not like, oh, I want to do this for fun. It's this is your family's lineage. This is what you were taught. This is what you were raised on.
I'm just like everything that they went through to put me here, and I have the knowledge, stability. Like, we're doing the same thing. We have the same mentality, the same hustle, the same like drive. but my circumstances are better. Like, I owe it to myself to just, and the family, do as much as I can, like, be supportive. Obviously, that's, that's like that's always been like.
So it's an internal drive you had. Like, you were inspired by your grandfather, and it was an internal drive. It wasn't like your parents telling you have to get out of bed, you have to go do this. You were inspired by him, and he was almost like a
my
mentor.
parents wanted me to do less.
Okay, that's the same with mine. My parents were like, school can wait, this can wait, let's go do something. You know what I mean? Like, they wanted me up doing things, but they didn't necessarily need, like, they were almost like that anti persuasion. So where are you now? We've talked about who you are, and that's actually, I didn't know any of those stories. That's the kind of stuff I can't find on the internet, right? I can find everything you are now. When I Google your name, all the articles, like, I can read all that. I didn't know any of that, so that's really cool to see where you came from. But where are you now?
Where am I now? So to fast forward, did drop out of school. I got, I was working with this consumer social company when I had discovered digital assets. I was about 21 years old at the time. Digital assets, I really fell down the proverbial rabbit hole very quickly, where when I first read about Bitcoin and read the white paper, it kind of clicked, like.
Yeah, I remember reading it the first time. That was like, I'm like, whoa, what? This is cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it happened very quickly for me, which to this date, I really try and encourage people to read it. But I guess it was like a circumstance of my thought process and the timing of life, and like my kind of, I did study economics before dropping out was what I was.
So were you an Ivy? You went to business, like Ivy, and then economics, or like, was that a?
I was like, Ivy was supposed to start in the third year of school.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, yeah.
That's how it works at Western. I actually got, I was ineligible to go to Ivy because I had my business at the time, the marketing consulting, and I had to drop a class to basically keep up with the workload.
Yeah.
And if you don't have a full course load, you can't continue. So ironically, the guy with the business that was doing 6 figures plus of revenue can't continue on to a business school, which is just a testament to the education system.
That shows. Like, I did my undergrad at U Ottawa, and then I started for my MBA over in Germany, and I liked it. But my whole thing was that I grew up from a family with a bunch of small businesses. My great-grandfather, my grandfather, my father, they all ran different businesses, like not the same. And so I'm like, okay, I want to go to business school, and I want to go try the big businesses. So then I went undergrad MBA work, and then I went over and worked for Amazon, and I realized pretty quick that that's not for me either. But it felt like when I was going to business school and doing that, I'm like, okay, this is just to tick a box on a resume now. Like, sure, I was learning stuff, but like 5-10% of the time, it wasn't the same as actually what I learned when I was running my businesses, making the money. Like, I don't know. I feel like I can relate to you in that way, that when I was in school, I'm like, I'm doing this to get a job after. I don't even know if I want to get a job. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just, it was a weird feeling when you're there and everybody else there is like, wow, this is how we run a business. I'm like, no, this is so far from it. You're still learning, you're just scratching the surface.
Right.
So yeah, I relate to that pretty heavy. But so where you are now, we're going to get back to that after Ivy Business School.
Okay, where I am now, I'm currently the founder of Acronym Holdings, which is a holding company, multifaceted holdco. We have 3 subsidiaries in the digital asset space primarily. We have Secure Digital Markets, is a full service digital asset brokerage, basically touching the full range of financial services for crypto. So trading, lending, all for institutions. We have a derivatives desk, SDM Financial, structured products.
I read pretty heavily into that. That's pretty cool. That's where I know you're the math guy. You actually like having the derivatives and actually getting into your lending and all that. And like, that was really cool. I haven't actually read much about that. Most people are like, oh, we'll trade with that. So I find that, I was like, that's a little rabbit hole I went down this morning and looking at what you do. Yeah.
So the Acronym ecosystem is really built around the concept of being able to provide a full service range of activities for clients that want to navigate digital assets. We support institutional capital, help them bridge the gap into the digital asset capital markets. So that starts with trading and accessing on-ramps, off-ramps, and liquidity, which was the first business I started and is really the cornerstone of the ecosystem, because that allows everyone to enter, exit, provides the touch points to the rest of the industry. And then we built out around that asset management. So we built hedge funds and structured products that investors could deploy into to get yield or exposure to the digital asset class. And then we have our derivative structured products desk. And then we have our capital markets arm, GDA Capital. So Each one is a self-sustaining business, dedicated team, very global and distributed. There's about, at peak, we were about 100 people in the umbrella. Now it's a bit smaller with the digital asset contractions. But that ecosystem allows us to take an institutional client, find the best fit for what their desire is within the crypto ecosystem to get leverage, access, trade, clearing, settlement, treasury.
Yeah, you were the first people to put an SPAC too, weren't you guys, an SPAC? You were the first company to put an SPAC. Was that... No. I was reading that. Wasn't that one of your companies, the first company to put a...
Oh, the SPAC on
NASDAQ?
NASDAQ,
yeah.
The first crypto SPAC.
Yeah, like I think of that.
Correct.
Yeah.
Sorry, when you said SPAC, I was thinking of like an organization.
No, SPAC. It's a SPAC. Yeah, so I don't know. I was yeah.
No, that's right.
You were the first people to do that. I'm like, that was actually pretty cool. Put it on the NASDAQ, and that's what your NASDAQ, your Instagram photo, that's what that is. Because I looked at that, so, I'm like, what is that? I dove a rabbit hole down that too. Yeah.
That's the same type of concept, right? What type of vehicles or exposure can we give to the institutional markets that they understand to help them get access to digital assets? That was one of our products that we took forward. My business partner and I kind of led that charge from internally, and were able to get it listed, which was cool. And it was a great experience, like starting to transition from young entrepreneur into the capital markets, environment.
That old money game a little bit. Actually, like
equities markets specifically, right. Which is a beast in of itself, and something that, now that I've opened up that rabbit hole, starting to do more. We ended up exiting another company I founded, Metaverse Group, to tokens.com, which is a public company here in Canada, listed publicly. So yeah, it's the traditional method, and I think there's benefits to it.
Yeah, for sure. So we're going to try to transition a little bit now. We're going to go into, what is your idea of money and monetary success? Like, what is your assets around financial success? Like, what is your mindset around that?
Yeah.
What does financial success mean to Zach? Like, is it, being able to buy what you want when you want? Is it being able to travel? Is it just being able
100%.
to go fancy food? Like, I don't know. What do you like? What's financial success to you? Obviously, you like a nice watch. We too, like, that's an aspect we like about it, but is that the be all end all for you?
No, I think that, to me, financial success does have to do underlying with freedom.
Okay.
I kind of separate financial success into two categories. It's kind of like working class and capital class. And to me, that threshold is about $20-30 million. What I mean by that is, if you accumulate about $20 or $30 million, you can live like what I consider to be the optimal lifestyle, with a high spend. If you're investing properly, you have good interest. You don't need to work for any reason, but you have the flexibility to be looking, capital classes, investments, and, flexibility and freedom. So my wealth goals, I want to live comfortably. As a foundation, I have, I have higher aspirations because of what I know I'm capable of, and desire to provide support and stability for my family for the generations to come because of the reference I made earlier. So
exactly. Yeah.
That's that's one of my driving factors for the top. But, I do believe that the core of that financial success is being able to live my life to its fullest.
I think that idea of freedom and the number you throw at the 20 to 30 million is actually a really important topic, because I don't know, our parents, our grandparents, and the general consensus led to believe is that hopefully you'll retire a millionaire by 65. You'll have $1 million in the bank and you can retire. It's like, that is a good goal. Like, that's a great goal for many people. But if you think you're going to, in 30 or 40 years, be able to live comfortably on a 5 or 6% return on $1 million, $60,000 a year, like with inflation and everything, that's not a realistic goal, right? To live comfortably and live like you want to live now. So throwing out that number of 20 to 30 million, it shows, okay, you're actually thinking that based on the 20 to 30 million isn't going down. A lot of people think, oh, I have $1 million, I can spend $1 million. It's like, no, that 20 to 30 million you want to keep there and then live off the interest, right? I'm just dumbing it down a lot more.
That's liquidity. It's not about exactly. So
I'm just simplifying that a lot quickly.
Correct. It's listeners. Investing it wisely. It's not about spend. It's all accumulated wealth on top of that. I think I've already found really great ways to invest, earn interest income, and support lifestyle. But that would be the
So were there any money philosophies or quotes out there that you really found interesting? Like, I know we had one of our guests bring up that the Waltons, like the founder of Walmart, they asked about when's enough money, and he always said one more dollar. Like he didn't matter. He was the richest guy in the world. He ran basically the world. 1% of the U.S. was working for him. He's like, I still want one more dollar. That person doesn't resonate with me, right? Is there any financial
agree.
like? Yeah,
I agree. I don't think that my ethos is tied to greed. It's not about ego. I think that, you know, again, as I said, like I want to work hard. I want to have fun. I want to make legacy impact. And money comes along with playing the game and being good and, you know, being good at what you do, being able to find success. It's a byproduct. So obviously it's a focus. It's pretty interesting, actually. One of the concepts that helped influence so we talked about where I am now.
Yeah.
But I'll kind of hint a little bit about where I'm trying to go, because my current focus objectively as running a multifaceted financial services business in the crypto ecosystem. What got me here is that I saw an opportunity to be at the forefront of a financial revolution. I'm very passionate about digital assets. I think that they have, you know, a ton of opportunity to, you know, democratize the financial ecosystem to benefit the world. But to me, it's also not the be all end all of what I want to do on this with my time on Earth.
Okay.
So I don't know if you're familiar with this concept called ikigai.
Yep. Japanese, right?
Awesome. Yeah. So really, it's a fantastic concept that, you know, in its most simplistic fashion is if you can find the intersection of what you love, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for, that's how you find your reason for being.
Yeah. And
your ikigai as like a center of gravity.
So have you found yours? Do you know your ikigai yet? Because I looked into mine. I'm like, I'm not certain of mine yet, right?
So that's kind of this framework. So I had achieved financial success at a young age. You know, I made my first $1 million by probably 22 or 23.
Yeah.
I had several successful business ventures in my back pocket.
Yeah.
And I was like, I know that I have the opportunity to make some sort of impact or difference. Where do I want to orient myself?
Yes.
So I got put onto the concept of ikigai, and I really stared at that Venn diagram for a while. And the difficulty I had was finding the intersection, like where the overlap kept coming up, was what I can be paid for and what the world needs. So the things at a young age with less experience, less connections, less network, less resources that I found were able to provide the most monetary success or that could benefit the world the most, it was difficult to combine that with making capital. So I actually decided to look at it from a different lens, which was I'm going to break this up into parts. In my 20s, I want to focus on, you know, what I'm good at, what I can be paid for, you know, and something that I enjoy doing, and remove what the world needs in its purest form of like impact. And then once I can escape that capital class, that working class, and get into that capital class, then I want to focus my 30s on that impact venture where I can actually focus on the purest form of like impact and benefit to the world without having to worry about money, whether that's, you know, inspiring entrepreneurs, like building platforms that can help amplify and help build businesses, writing a book. It doesn't, you know, I don't know like what impact I want to have on a specific industry. I have a few in mind. I want to be able to do so, you know, altruistically without having money as like a center point. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I actually really resonate with that as well. Like my whole thing was, I've spent 7 years. I've sailed around the world. I've been a lot of places. I've done a lot, and I've seen a lot of people helping and spending their time and volunteering, and they're really making a difference. However, my thought was, why don't I just get to the point where I'm financially successful enough that I can actually afford to spend the time and money to help? Right. So mine is, I'm like, I wanted to actually get to the point where I actually could run this podcast and give all the proceeds back to charity and just spend the time and be able to do that. And I can actually start the charity and spend the time now. Because if you're trying to make money and make yourself, then you can't necessarily give back to the same extent.
And
I don't know, it's hard at the same time.
This is exactly like what you built with the podcast is exactly the point I'm making. Like you're fortunate enough to have some financial flexibility at this stage of your life, where you can do so, where you get to amplify voices. You know, hopefully the guests you have on your podcast, and I know some of them already as being inspiring people, they can impact and touch people's lives. There's a ripple effect.
Exactly.
Donating the proceeds to charity. It's like, those are the types of activities that I want to do, for the rest of my life, whether it's one big one or, in smaller subsets. However, it becomes difficult when you need to pay for life and living, right?
Yeah. So that's the thing, is I felt like I've met my basic needs to the point where I could retire up north. I quit my job to take care of my father and his health concerns. Then I'm like, now I can actually work. He's getting better and stuff. So now I can work on giving back more. And sure, I still have ambition, drive, and I want to make more money. I want to do that. But I feel like I can take this time now and start this venture because it just kind of fell into my lap. It just happened that way. But when I looked into Ikigai and I looked into doing all that, I felt like it was very difficult to find where you could make money and what the world needs, and then also add that altruistic feeling of helping people, because the world can need a lot of things, but sometimes they don't. Like, I worked for Amazon for a long time, managing the biggest warehouse. We shipped out hundreds of thousands of packages a night. 99% of the stuff we ship out, people didn't need, right? Like, people wanted it. It was based on desire, but I felt like it wasn't what they needed, right?
And that's a little bit about how I feel with digital assets, as I believe in the ethos and the benefits of the ecosystem and what we're building. I do believe that Bitcoin is a safer, sounder form of, physical currency. But it is centered around the financial ecosystem in a way that, it's not like it's a game in and of itself. So
yes.
Just some of the services and offerings, like
nobody necessarily needs an NFT of a ape, right? That's not necessary, but it's a cool idea and how it's starting. And it's starting from somewhere. This is not actually a question that was on here, but since you know a fair bit about this blockchain, the NFTs, and that idea of the digital assets, I wanted to get your take on the idea that most people understand. Like, we all agree Canadian dollar's value because all of the Canadians in the general world agree the Canadian dollar has value. There's not the amount of printed dollars out there. Like, that's not printed. A lot of them is digital assets. Like, if you go to the bank right now and you say, I want to withdraw all the money in the bank doesn't have that amount of money. It's not all just sitting there in cash somewhere, right? So that idea I wanted to get your viewpoint on. Do you think Web3, crypto, Bitcoin will ever fully replace a financial system in any regard anywhere?
I believe that digital assets are here to stay. I believe that digital assets will be mainstream at some point in the near to, short to medium term. On a 10-year time horizon, I really think that the benefits of a superior technology with a better monetary policy, so to speak, will just continue to, outshine the old system. There are ingrained habits and ways that are, preventative to immediate adoption.
Yes.
But the adoption cycle is there. We are experiencing a slowdown in what, we would call a bear market in the digital asset space, because, some bad actors that really caused the industry to collapse and be removed from attention. But the same reason for all of the hype and, excitement over the digital asset space at the end of the last cycle still exists. There's nothing's changed with respect to my thesis. Nothing's changed with, how big I think, the opportunity, the really like the full bull case for Bitcoin is as replacing, the entire global reserve currency. Obviously there's a spectrum of what that could be. That could be, an alternative to gold with $6 to $10 trillion market cap.
I like to hear you say that, because I've interviewed some people and talked to some people that are like, no, it's going to replace the Canadian dollar and US dollar and all this. It's like, no, you're essentially saying that it is its own thing and it will have its own value, right? Everybody's like, no, I want to replace the US dollar. I'm like, it's not a replacement, right? Like, that's not how it's designed to replace the monetary system, but it has its own integration in there. So
at the end of the day, debt to GDP ratios are at an all-time high. And the people that are holding the bag are the ones that are holding the physical currency, right? As the government continues to up inflation and devalue the currencies, that they can pay debt that is really unsurmountable at this time, you are going to see increasingly the depreciation of your, asset value and the purchasing power of, your centralized currency. And that lets stick with the US dollar, Canadian dollar. You now need to make 70% more income to purchase a house here at the same ratio as you did at the beginning of COVID
and that's just in the last few years, which is crazy. Did you know that the Canadian government spends more on its interest payments than they do on their healthcare, schooling, and roads combined? Just interest.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I believe it. I would
But
and that's my point. And I think that the more people start to understand that there is an alternative, which Bitcoin can be, the quicker they'll start to store their wealth and hold, part of that reserve currency as digital assets on their balance sheet. And that's really part of the conversation that we have with our institutional clients is, how do we get you off zero, right? Like, get your toe in the water. You need skin in the game to really, start to understand the concept and follow what's happening, study the price, understand the market impacts, the shifts. Like, people know the macroeconomics around major, fiscal markets and currency markets, but Bitcoin has its own
ecosystem, its own everything.
Correct. So, we can talk. That's why we built our full service ecosystem is, how do we get you to buy your first digital assets, hold it, store it, access it in whatever way that best fits your investment thesis?
Yeah, I feel like I really resonate with the businesses you've done, because my consulting company primarily helped with NFT and crypto companies. Basically, they had a bunch of Wild West kids, and I went and I helped them become real businesses. That's kind of what I did for a while. I'd go and I'd set up their finances, bring in the lawyers, bring in the developers, and do all that. So that's why I really liked what you're doing. But we're going to get back a little bit on track with the questions here. We got a little bit off topic there, but I think that's something I was just passionate about. You've had a lot of success, and you are in a very cool spot in life, in a successful spot in life right now. But you must have had some trials and tribulations, some sort of difficulty, some hurdle to overcome, some mountain to climb. Is there anything that you've actually had?
Every single week. I would say that, listen, when I first started my company, I was 22 in the digital asset space. You are taking on a legacy market with, a lot of ingrained systems and principles. Digital asset market has faced every sort of, critique possible. And that stems to family, friends, there's just the take around what access into the digital asset market and working in crypto meant from the outside. I feel like I faced a lot of scrutiny. I've looked at who I considered in a prior part of my life to be thought leaders and aspirational leaders, talk down on the industry that
people you looked up to, and they just went no to that. Yeah, that's hard.
Correct. Doubt or have hesitation around digital assets. So I would say that one of the biggest tribulations, but one of the biggest lessons was it was facing that continuous, when I first got into the market, facing that continuous pushback, but maintaining conviction in my beliefs and realizing that, great ideas, shifting paradigms, those are always met with, force and resistance at first. It is, necessary that brave or confident people of all walks of life move forward and push through, and that's really
people are always going to be resistant to change, especially when their current thing works, right? So yeah, I get that. So were there any did you have something else to add?
I would say that having that general undertone, just working digital assets, has been something along the way of building a business. Like, if you talk to any entrepreneur, you don't get there without facing an immeasurable amount of hurdles, humps, stress, times where you almost failed. It's throughout the entire journey. I mean, the entrepreneurship is not a straight up slope. It really is
it's a mountain.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah. I completely agree. So were there any mistakes or failures or specific instances that kind of kicked you back in your seat and went, that sucks? And then long term, looking back at it today, you go, wow, I'm really happy that happened. That changed my trajectory. Like, you could say dropping out of school initially, you want to go to school. You'd be like, okay, yeah, but taking a less course load allows you to do this. Was there anything out there that really something that set you back that you thought really actually helped you in the future?
Listen, to answer that question, in its most simple form, I don't believe that like every setback teaches you a lesson.
Okay. Yeah, we're on the same page. I like that.
I live with regret minimization framework, where I don't have regrets. If I make a decision, the decision's made. If you make a mistake, you know, it's a lesson or a learning. It's not a failure. I wouldn't be where I am today without the aggregate, you know, lessons learned from an enormous amount of failures. The difference between, you know, a master and a beginner is that a master has failed more times than, you know, a beginner amateur has even tried.
Yeah.
Right? The best basketball players in the world have missed more shots than an amateur basketball player has ever shot. That's like you asked the question, I could go into 100 unique stories of failures that would have driven most sane people crazy. Like entrepreneurship is not an easy path. It's you really like it's almost more a test of willpower than intelligence and resilience.
It's a good way to put it, because you need, obviously people think you need to be intelligent, you need to be this, you need to be that, but the idea that when something kicks you down in your seat and kicks you back, you actually feel to get back up again. That's a huge aspect that I feel like I've learned. But some of the other podcast people I've had on here are much younger than us. Right. They're like, no man, things are working out great. Like they're just still like in their early 20s, and I wish them all the best, and I wish they never get kicked in their seat hard, but it's going to happen. So it's interesting to see, like,
Winston Churchill said it, I believe, is the quote, success is going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm.
That's a good one. Yeah.
I do embody that in my daily life and activities. Crypto has had enormously high peaks and it's had very low troughs where we didn't know if there was actually days of, after years of building my business, specifically the like COVID dip of crypto, when it hit the $3,000 mark. I was staring at my computer and I thought all the hard work I'd done for 3 years, I thought the market was done. I was like, I was sitting there in my chair and I was like,
I'm done.
Yeah, no, I just thought that there was like a really, really significant chance that crypto was just done forever when it was dropping down.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So, you know, that's like just another hiccup in the road. That was
well. With that, you're saying crypto's done. Are you like, well, now I'm done. I'm gonna go move back in with my parents and go to bed, or like, what was your thought process then, or did you wait for it to go back up, or like, because that a lot of people when that happened, they'd be like, yeah, well, that was fun. I'm going to go watch Netflix now and go see how mom's doing and go back to my childhood bedroom, right? Like that's the general consensus when you feel like that happens. Obviously, it didn't.
No, you have to keep going. Listen, it would have been very easy. I have built a very big business.
Yes.
And we're still around, we're still kicking. But like when crypto market dynamics changed, you know, 2 years ago with the starting of really like the 3 hours capital leading into FTX and the crypto bear market, it would have been very easy to just like, now, you know, everyone is back to being anti-crypto and, you know, all the progress we've made is going downhill. Yeah. Really easy to make a shift and start to like work in AI and build an AI and forget everything we've done.
Move on,
But obviously, like I still like to this day, like my thesis hasn't changed, but doesn't mean I don't have days where I doubt it.
I like you bring that up because there are ups and downs. It's not like every day you wake up and you're like, this is it. This is the best I know my life. I'm certain every day. You're waking up and be like, yeah, what I'm doing is right every day. Because you get up and you have those days. You're like, what am I doing with my life? Am I doing everything wrong? This is not working out. And people always overlook that. People always go like, everybody you see online and everything is like, no, my life is great. Look at me go. Like your social media, my social media. It looks great. Like we have a lot of fun, but that's not our day-to-day life. That's not who we are. We get up and we have issues. We're like, oh man, no, I don't like this. I'm not feeling good today.
I bet you I have 4, fires to put out by the time I check my phone after this podcast.
That's how it works.
It's par for the course.
Yeah. So we're going to try to transition into something a little more interesting. This is usually there's, when I ask the guest this question, they have one thing, but I feel like you've had so many. Do you have any specific investment or venture that was innovative or unconventional that you want to talk about? Because pretty much everything you've done is pretty much unconventional, right? But is there anything that you're like, well, I've never seen this done before for you? Like,
I mean, a lot of like a lot of my core businesses were investing into myself. So those were certainly unconventional. Talk about a deal we did that's now really at the forefront of the Web3 industry, which is the acquisition of Pudgy Penguins, which is an interesting one. So I was one of the first 5 investors to purchase Pudgy Penguins, which is one of the first NFT projects.
Yeah.
Had a lot of success. Project contracted. We saw an opportunity to take it over, with Luca Netz as CEO. Really had an amazing vision. At the time, purchasing a project like this was, a very big risk.
Yeah.
For a couple $1 million, and being able to turn it around and seeing what we can do instead of starting our own project or
Back then people were still skeptical of NFTs, much less like buying a whole project of them, right? In that idea, that market. So yeah, that's very unconventional.
Correct. Where we are today is now we're really a top 3 digital asset project based on both the capital we have in the bank and what we've been able to accomplish relative to our peers, especially in the period of a market where almost every project pulled back. We've grown multifold in terms of we're about $500 million plus market cap as a
that's a big deal. That's,
NFT
that with a B.
now.
That's an interesting one. $500 million, not million, billion. Yeah,
correct. And we are, we were the number 1 selling toy on Amazon. We transcended into Web 2. We took a Web 3 internet sensation brand, and we're now competing and challenging what is like legacy toy and Web 2
because I've seen this. I remember reading about this Pudgy Penguin thing. I bought the NFTs a long time ago, and I saw it in life. I didn't know that was you and what you've done. That's something else that I didn't see online. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
How'd you identify that opportunity? How'd you be like, you know what, we're buying this? It was just like throw a dart at a dartboard.
I have to credit the CEO Luca for coming up with the idea originally. But being able to understand his vision at that time, I would say, still requires your own divergent thinking, right? It's not it's not straightforward.
A little crazy, a little out there to even think to do that, right? That's kind of just wild, but it works out, right?
Yeah, I would say on another lens to answer that question, I'm a big fan of longevity, and I've invested into a few cutting edge biotech and longevity companies.
Okay,
I'm pretty excited about. A little bit more complicated to go into on the podcast because it's
that's
highly technical, but it is something. The school of thought around longevity is something I'm very passionate about now.
I think that also I could briefly. That's because of both of our sport backgrounds, right? In sport, you talk about longevity and being healthy and being active and that kind of thing. Did that play any into that at all? Why you want to be into longevity was how you see the your athletic background at all, or?
I think being an entrepreneur is like an athletic endeavor in and of itself.
Okay.
Where focus is an output, but like your body and mind being sound and strong and fit is crucial to success and activity and, making sound decisions, operating at your highest performing level. I believe that, finding that balance, like when I first started my company, I don't think my health, not only my health was not fantastic. Like I definitely, was long hours in the office, poor sleep habits, and it was okay while I was young, but it caught up to me. And
no, I agree. I've had the same things. Yeah, continue.
I didn't necessarily experience burnout, but I got to a point where I was really just putting my body, I was not treating my body well. At a big 180. I looked at myself in the mirror one day. I'm like, I'm successful. Things are looking good on the outside, but I need to really change my health habits.
Yeah, my brief little story on that is that I was working for Amazon 4 days a week, managing their biggest warehouse, running night shift there. And then I had my consulting company, so every weekend I was flying and doing things, and so I was not really sleeping, not really eating,
right?
But I was being financially successful, and I was having a lot of fun, and I was learning a lot. And then I eventually looked in the mirror. I'm like, wow, I've always been like a stronger athletic guy, and I looked in the mirror. I'm like, I'm 20 pounds less than I've ever been. Right? I don't feel healthy. I feel mentally in a fog because I'm not really sleeping. I'm not really eating, and like it kind of makes you reset. You need to actually think about that work-life balance a little more because you can't do it forever, right? I wasn't really burnt out. I wasn't done. I wasn't over. But like you do look in the mirror and you go, I can't do this for 40 years. I can't do this for 20 years. I don't want to do that. I don't want this to be my life. So how do you decide a work-life balance? Is there a routine? Are you one of those guys that gets up at 4:30 and runs 10 kilometers? Or what do you do for work-life balance?
There was definitely a period where I went all in on the health shift, or I was doing my 5:30 mornings, red light therapy, AG1 for breakfast, cold shower exposure,
whole thing,
supplements, breathing exercises, into the office.
So you don't
I enjoyed it. I maintain a strict schedule. Not, I would say it's a little bit more flexible. Like, you know, it helped to build the habits to go. It took a while to build the habits, but there's definitely a period I was better at it. I do believe in all of that still. Like, I still have a very religious sleep routine, phone out of the bedroom, like winding down with lights, morning, like all those health habits. I make sure I get my, like, you know, 4 sessions or 3 sessions of cardio in a week. I box now is one of my favorite activities. You know, I try and do strength training, resistance training, at least, you know, 5 to 6 sets per major muscle group a week as well.
Yeah, and so you find that helps. So do you find with the strength, like I know for myself, the strength training and like I do judo and jiu-jitsu and I used to play lacrosse and hockey, and that idea that I can get out the physical aggression, that helps me mitigate stress. Is that something that...
100%. Yeah, boxing is I love boxing. Is
that what you do to mitigate stress? Because I know some people like to meditate, some people like to cold baths and that kind of stuff. Was that your big thing? Do you like to get the physical aggression out physically, or like, I don't know, how do you like to
listen,
do it?
It's a mix. I was a rugby player historically, like that was my sport when I was younger, before I had shoulder injuries. So, you know, I definitely have that like little bit of aggression in me.
I just want to run through somebody.
I like to you know, wrestle as a little kid. Like, it was a lot of fun. So, finding boxing was great for me. It was also great rehab for some of my shoulder injuries and like full body fitness cardio. And I also think it's mentally stimulating as well. So you get like physical aggression. You know, it's great for testosterone. It's great for full body conditioning, but it's strategic. It's like chess. Like, you're mentally engaged. Find that some gym activities you can check out for resistance training sometime, and it's just more of like body mechanics, like muscle memory. With boxing, like you really have to remain like thoughtful and focused, and you know. Yeah,
you have, because you're with an opponent.
And exercise.
It's actually, you have to counter them, think of them. It's not like, okay, I'm just going to go bench, I'm just going to go squat, I'm going to go deadlift, right? Like,
correct. And I love that. I love mental stimulation. Like we talked about meeting at a poker game. Like, that's why I love poker as a hobby, is because it is at its like, you know, purest form, really like a mentally stimulating activity. I don't really do it for any form of like money. It's more for the enjoyment of...
Some of the people that were at that poker game and stuff actually do it as their job, and they try to do it for money, and they like spend their whole life on it.
Full-time pros. It's a hobby for me.
Exactly. They're full-time pros at those games. And so I just like going there and sitting at the table with these guys and actually talking. I like the pokers. It's like a mental stimulating, but that's all. You can be social and it's fun and you can meet cool people. Like, that's why I like
I've
these
done
games.
a lot of business around the poker table for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. Did you do golf?
I don't.
I'm a big fan.
I was a tennis player growing up. Instead of golf.
I like a lot of golf because if you're really good at golf, you're out there for 4 hours and you're only doing something for 72 seconds. If you do your 72 strokes, it's mostly just talking. So that's another thing. Like, it's a poker. You're not playing every hand.
Playing poker.
Yeah, you're not playing every hand, right?
I mean, just the more you understand about the mechanics, the odds, the actual like emotional strategy that goes into it and the psychology behind it, like you're always on at the table. Like 6 hours goes by in a blink, and it's like
I love math. I love the odds. I know the odds of the hand stuff, and it was fun. I like math, but then you add in the psychology of it all, because bluffing is a thing, right? Like, it's not just who has the best odds to win. It's not just a math game, right?
You're taking in every perceived edge and read you have and psychological tell. How is this person playing? What did they do last night? Are they tired? Do they need the money? How much money do they have? Do they have a witty, like, do they have a battle with this person? Is their ego coming into play? Like,
so much fun.
I've seen it might not be the best example, but like I've seen like girl female poker players exploit men so badly because of their like underlying, whether it's like misogynistic tendencies or like the way they
just outsmarted them, basically.
Right. They're playing their advantage in a poker hand, and like I've just watched it unfold. I come in like full guard up against female poker players because I know like how much sharper they are in this.
The few female poker players I know that actually do it professionally are good. Like, holy good. Like, you don't think about it because like you just think like they're like anybody else, but no, they're sharp. They're smart.
Against an amateur, the edge. It's like it's funny, but
it's funny. Mm-hmm. So as our timer's coming to a close here, do you have any piece of advice or anything you've learned that's quintessential to your success?
Yeah, I would say on theme of today is really that every obstacle is an opportunity for improvement. Like, in the path to success, you will face obstacles. having the resilience, and really the conviction and belief to continue, which stems from willpower, to continue to have faith in your conviction, have faith in your thoughts, push forward those goals and really try and, chase and accomplish big goals that you're capable of is, something that I would say that everyone should consider.
No, I agree. I like the saying that learning is a gift, even when pain is your teacher. Good enough? Awesome. Thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah.
Well, that brings us to the end of the 4th and fantastic episode of the Young and Successful podcast. We hope you've had as much fun listening as we've had sharing these amazing insights and stories with you. Remember that making the first million is not just about the destination, it is about the journey, the lessons learned, the challenges conquered, and the laughter along the way. So don't forget to enjoy every step of your success story. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please give us a virtual high five by subscribing, leaving a review, or sharing it with your fellow dreamers and doers. And hey, if you've got a story to share, you want to be a guest, or a topic you want to dive into, slide in our DMs, drop us an email. We would love to hear from you. Until next Friday, stay young, stay hungry, and keep chasing those millions with a smile on your face. And always remember, there's a million ways to make $1 million. This is Carl Grin, signing off.